Welcome to Business and Beyond, the podcast where business leaders and big ideas meet real-world challenges. I'm Julie Wheeler, President and CEO of the BBB Serving Western Virginia. Each episode, we will bring you candid conversations, expert insights, and real-life stories to help you lead with purpose, build trust, and grow your business with confidence. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Julie Wheeler, President and CEO of the BBB Serving Western Virginia. On this episode, we're going to talk about how small business owners can better understand what their business is worth and what drives value in the eyes of buyers. Today, I'm joined by Wayne Firebaugh, a certified financial planner who serves Roanoke Valley and beyond, who's here to discuss what steps owners can take when it's time to sell. Thank you, Wayne. This is a topic as we see business owners maybe get a little bit older, closer, be thinking about that retirement thing and what are my options? What can I do? What's my business worth?
It's probably a topic that a lot more business owners
need to be thinking about,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, if you think about what the typical owner has as their net worth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times it is dominated by the value of their small business. Right. And you and I have joked in the past about raising kids. And so you raise kids and you don't have any money, right? And so you're buying your house, you're raising your kids, and then eventually you get older and you have money. Now as a business owner, you're raising kids, buying a house, and starting a business. And so you really have no money.
Yes.
And then at some point, all of a sudden, magically, your business is successful and it's worth something. And so it's not uncommon to find a lot of small business owners, and that's a relative term, right? Small business.
Yeah.
But a lot of small business owners, their value is in their business. You know, their employees might have 401k plans, but their 401k savings were diverted to paying payroll.
Right.
And so it becomes an issue. And so I think even if you're going to keep the business transfer within the family, you still need to start understanding what value is.
Right. Well, and it's kind of like their baby. You know, we talk about raising our babies. Well, the business becomes a baby as well. Right. All the work. I mean, you put a lot of yourself into it. And I think with that, you know, maybe we may have unrealistic expectations or opinions about what it's worth. And I think if we can't do anything, is to help business owners understand how they figure out what the real value is and maybe not what their intrinsic or perceived value is.
It's a hard thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, you spent probably decades building this.
Yep.
And every day you get up and you go to work, and then after your employees have gone home, you're still at work.
Yep.
You take it home with you because there's no leaving it at the office. And so you're so emotionally tied up in this. It is your identity.
Right.
When people say, well, what do you do? I'm the owner of such and such business.
Right.
And so you do really have this emotional attachment to your business. And that's great because that's the thing that made it so that you could get through the lean times when you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Right.
But it's also the thing that sometimes makes it difficult to step back and go, okay, wait a second. If somebody is really going to buy my business, they're not going to have that emotional attachment to it that I am. And so if I want to sell my business for fair value, I need to realize what fair value is. And fair value does not include the emotional baggage that I have with my business.
Yes, and I think that reality can be a very, very difficult one, you know, for someone to face. How can you move towards that more objective view? You know, what are some steps to take to kind of pull the emotion out of it?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to realize that we're all emotional about our business, right? I mean, it's just like when we're having these conversations with our teenagers, right? And we go, well, tell me what you did wrong, right? I mean, I need you to admit what you did. And so we kind of need, as a business owner, we need to go, okay, I need to step back and realize that other people are going to have a different value than I do.
Right.
And they're going to look at it differently. But then once I accept that, then I can start going out and I can start looking at some external sources of value.
Okay.
Right? Because if I don't get myself in that headspace first, my feelings are going to be hurt. Right?
Absolutely.
And so I can go out to, there's some industry sites, for example, you could go look at Biz by Sale. Okay. That is a website where business brokers list businesses. Okay. And so and there are a couple others too. But you could go on there and you can go, okay, what does a business sell for? And it might not be a business exactly like mine, but what I can start to get is I can start to get an idea of, okay, here's another business that has $200,000 in cash flow, and here's what it's selling for.
Right.
Right. So if my business has $100,000 of cash flow, I'm probably not going to get $2 million for it. Right.
Right.
And so I start to once I get myself where I accept that I am emotional about it, then I can start looking at what other businesses sell for. Again, they might not be the same as mine, but I get an idea about the cash flow. If I want to keep taking it further, maybe I hire a business broker to look at the value, or I hire an appraiser to look at the value. Right. Those things can be costly. And if I'm not ready to sell, but I just want to start getting an idea, then I can look at some of the sites and where they sell, and start saying, okay, this is what businesses sell for.
What do buyers look for? I mean, how do buyers come up with what they think a business is worth? And I know that is a huge bucket. I mean, that's a big question, but I mean, there are some kind of standards, I think.
Yeah, there are. I think the thing is as a buyer of a business, you view it as you do any other investment.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So you're looking for return.
So if I think about if I'm selling my business, if I realize that the buyers are evaluating it just as they would another investment. Well, maybe not just as, but it's the same sort of thing. Is they're looking out there and they go, okay, I'm going to buy Wayne's business, and he's asking $1 million for it. How does that compare to alternative investments? And sometimes that's the thing that business owners really, they have difficulty separating the job that they work at from the fact that the business is an investment. Investment.
Sure.
Right? And we don't buy stocks or bonds or even certificates of deposit or real estate without expecting some sort of return on that business. But because we meld it together and it's like it's my job and my business, we sometimes forget that they're really separate. They're really separate things. And it goes back to your first question: is if I get myself into the mindset of these are separate things. I work here, yes, but I also own a business,
right?
And the business is the asset. The job is not an asset.
Gotcha. Well, so to get a little technical, I know just from a little bit from my background, sometimes you look at earnings multiples and revenue multiples, and are there different industries that are more looked at using one or the other, or?
There are, and lots of times folks will say, well, I'll see business selling at multiples. Like, for example, my own business, I'm a registered investment advisor, a fee-only financial advisory firm. And commonly in my business, people look at multiples.
Okay.
And so they'll say, oh, well, business, an advisory firm is selling at this multiple or that multiple. At the end of the day, though, whether you're using an earnings multiple, which is based on bottom line, or you're using a revenue multiple, which is based upon revenue, as the name suggests, it really comes down to a proxy for cash flow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? If I'm buying a business, right, I am looking at, is it going to provide a return?
Yep.
And the only return that I get is cash flow. And I take it back and I liken it to a stock. If I'm buying a stock, what am I buying? Right? Take it out of the realm of my small business for a minute. If I'm buying a stock, what am I buying? I'm buying cash flow.
Yep, dividends or appreciation or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm buying the dividends if it pays dividends, and I'm buying the cash flow that comes from the eventual sale. When I buy a small business, I'm doing the same thing. Okay. And everything else is just a proxy for trying to get there as a rule of thumb. But if I take two businesses in the same industry, and one of them is very profitable, and the other one breaks even or doesn't make any money at all, the multiple, the industry standard rule of thumb multiple is not going to apply to both.
Right.
Sure. The business that doesn't make any money isn't worth anything. And it gets back to the thing that this is sometimes that's difficult for business owners to understand. If your business doesn't make any money, the value to an external seller, to an external buyer isn't very high.
However, there is looking at the financial statements and looking if there's unusually high salaries, unusually high depreciation. I mean, there is stuff that can change that bottom line of nothing to something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you look at that's exactly right. So then what you do is you are having to look at financial statements and go, okay, well, this business makes a lot of money and this one doesn't. It is deeper than that. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yep.
Why? I mean, so the business is not making a lot of money is because they employ all the kids and they so you get to the point cars and so you do get to as part of the cash flow evaluation process, you do back out those expenses.
Right.
Because really what you're looking at is you're not looking so much at reported cash flow as you are looking at adjusted cash flow.
Yes.
And the term of art is seller's discretionary earnings. And so,
gotcha.
So I'll start with cash flow, reported cash flow on my financial statements, but then I have add backs, mm-hmm. right? So in common add backs are going to be depreciation and amortization. Maybe I employ my spouse, I add that back. Maybe my business in my industry, a replacement manager, we think of that as a replacement manager. Maybe a replacement manager in my business, in my industry, makes $120,000.
Yeah.
But I'm making $500,000.
Right.
Well, that $380,000 difference is an add back. Right.
Sure.
So you do have to. You're right. You can't just take it at face value. You do have to take and go, okay, what am I going to add back?
Yeah.
But at the core, I'm buying cash flow.
Yes.
And if I look at it, and even after I've added all those things back, that there's not much cash flow there. Well, then really what I'm looking at is I'm looking at buying assets.
Yeah. There's a lot of complexity in it, but as someone who owns a business who may be trying to get rid of it, you need to understand what those ins and outs are.
You do. And it all still comes back down to cash flow, but there's a second element of it, which is required rate of return. And cash flow is a little bit subjective, right? Because I say, maybe I can add this back, maybe I won't.
Right.
But rate of return is very subjective. As a buyer, though, I'm going to compare that to alternatives.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So if I'm looking to take my $1 million and I've determined that a cash flow from a business is some amount, I'm going to evaluate that cash flow based upon the rate of return I could get in alternatives.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, let's say I have $1 million to invest. And I could go and I could buy a certificate of deposit and get $30,000 a year.
Right.
All right. Okay. I could go and buy an S&P 500 index fund and make $9,000 or $10,000. I may make 9 or 10%, so $90,000 to $100,000. Maybe I could buy a small cap index fund and make 12 to 15%.
Right.
So all of those are things that I look at in terms of alternatives of what I can earn in terms of what I could earn as a required rate of return. I'm looking at alternatives. I'm also looking at risk.
I was getting ready to ask you, but that's also, all those things you mentioned, the risk increases with each, and I'm assuming the purchase of a business,
that's right.
There's risk inherent.
That's right. And so people go, well, if I'm going to buy a business and I'm going to put that money into it, I'm looking at the alternatives in terms of return, but I'm also looking at them in terms of the risk. So, for example, if your business generates $100,000 and you're asking me for $1 million purchase price, that's essentially a 10% rate of return. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to look at that and go, well, I could earn that in the U.S. stock markets, which is a diversified
a basket
of stocks where I've spread my risk.
Right.
I could do that, or I could buy your small business that has enormous non-diversified risk.
Right.
I think I'll take my $1 million and just put it in an index fund. Right? Because so what does that tell me as a small business owner? As I start to look at this from a realistic perspective, I go, you know what? My business that generates $100,000, I'm not going to get $1 million for
right.
it. You know, because I'm competing against other investment alternatives.
Yeah, that's a pretty big reality check.
It is a big reality. It is a big reality check,
yeah.
And that's a hard one for businesses to get over, business owners to get over, because they look and they go, well,
right.
You know, I'm very consistent and I always make this amount of money. And look, you could come here and you could earn this sort of salary too. Yeah, but look at what I could earn if I take my $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million and put it someplace else,
right.
And earn money on that too.
Yeah. So I would think another thing that any buyer would have to consider is the role that the current owner plays.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You know, because are they the one that everybody knows, that everybody calls? I mean, how much can that affect value if someone is pretty much the business, period?
You know, I've seen 40 or 50%. Right,
okay.
You know, and you liken it to what's a celebrity, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you have a celebrity,
exactly. Yeah.
You have a celebrity owner, right? But it's like, what is that business worth if the owner is the face of the business and is the person getting the revenue and the person who does the work and the person who
right.
who does the billing, and I mean the owner is the business, and so now you don't have any separation from the owner as a personality and the business as a personality. And so enormous. And so as a business owner, what you do is you start early, start pushing that business away from you. Right?
Yeah, and that's tough. I think it'd be tough but you need to do it if you're going to maximize the value. If it's going to be, you're going to maximize what you're able to get from it.
Unless you want to work forever.
Well, that does tend to happen a lot too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, it does. But it is hard to do.
Yeah,
it is hard to do,
and it can be difficult to show the returns that are competitive with what other returns can get. So, how do you position your small business? I mean, what makes somebody just absolutely wants to be a small business owner? Is that the person who's going to buy your business versus?
I don't know. Yeah, as a small business owner, we have something wrong with us, right? But people want to be. That one of the great things about the American capitalism system is the fact that a lot of us want to be our own boss.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And so you always have people that want to be their own boss. And so you're going to have, if you go to that site I mentioned, Biz Buy Sell, you're going to find thousands of businesses listed. And thousands of businesses are listed because thousands of people are trying to buy a business.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? You look at the recent, I was talking to one business broker here over the last couple of months who has a presence in the eastern part of the state of Virginia. And he noted that they're really having an influx of inquiries about buying business as people are leaving the federal government.
Right.
And people are going, you know what? I got a great job, I got a great pension, I got great health care, but too much uncertainty. And I would like to be able to be my own boss and control my destiny.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things is we like to own businesses, and we like to be the boss, and we like to create, and we like to have opportunity. There's a lot of great things with being a business owner.
Absolutely. I'm all about small business.
Right.
I think.
Really?
Yes, you never would know that, would you?
Right, yeah. No,
I'm a firm believer in it, and I think I've always felt like it's the foundation of who we are as a country.
Right. You've seen the statistics the same way as I have. The number of people that are employed in this country by small businesses.
Yes.
Right. We look out there in a place like where we live. We look at the hospital chains, or we look at the railroad, or we look at all these people and go, wow, they employ a lot of people, and they do.
Yeah,
but in the grand scheme of life, it's the contractor that employs 3 or 4 people, and the restaurant that employs 10 or 15.
Exactly.
That really are what drive a lot of our economy, and that's where people work. And so somebody's got to own those businesses.
Yes, absolutely.
And at some point, those businesses just like we all have a life cycle, businesses have a life cycle. And when owners decide to transition out, they either have to sell the business, transfer the business to someone in the family, or close it down.
Right. Yeah.
And if that business is a substantial part of my net worth, I don't want to just close it down.
Right. Well, so what are the practical steps they can do to improve the value today?
Well, you and I have talked about in the past, one thing is understand your financial statements and understand what drives value in your business, right? Know that at some level it is cash flow that drives your business. Even if there are rules of thumb in your industry for multiples, whether they're revenue multiples or earnings multiples, cash flow drives it, okay? And then, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not an IRS agent, right? Whether you're using your business to help fund your personal lifestyle, but know that as a buyer, I'm going to look at that, and so understand what drives the cash flow in your business, and be prepared to discuss it. Be prepared to figure out what are the risks in your business. Right? So if you have a single customer that is 25% of your business, that's an enormous amount of risk. And that's gonna tend to maybe depress the value, or not depress, but reduce the value of that business. So understand what's driving value and what buyers are looking for. I liken it to a house, right? If I'm getting ready to sell my house and I call the realtor over, and the realtor goes, well, you know what? If you did some landscaping, it would help. Right. And I'm going, okay, I could do that. And you go, and if you're going to sell, Wayne, in 5 years, maybe you go ahead and update the bathroom, right? You'll get that money back. Right. So you can start thinking about your business in advance as to what is going to make it more saleable.
When do you start thinking about that? Should you be thinking about that when you're 10 years out, 5 years out, 20 years out?
Well, why don't you pause this episode and go ahead and start doing it now?
Well, yeah, probably.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, don't do that because we want you to continue listening. But it's immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
You almost need, just like start with the end in mind. You start your business, you need to be thinking about your...
Absolutely. And you say that, but when you start a business, be thinking about how you're going to get out.
Yep, absolutely. But if you haven't,
there
and now you're trying to figure it out.
Start doing it now.
Right.
And as you and I both know, what happens is if one of the pieces of it is maximizing the value for your business.
Right.
So that this substantial piece of your net worth, you're able to get a value out. But the other piece of it is life is unpredictable.
Yes.
Right? And so I want to be able to, when I discover that I have some sort of diagnosis.
Yes.
Or I have something that I just can't take it anymore.
You have a plan.
I've already started to put into place a plan to say, how am I going to exit this business? I don't want to find out that I have that disease, that diagnosis, and now I haven't thought at all about how I'm going to sell my business.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we hear it every year. We have businesses, and they've had great businesses, and they're not able to continue because of an illness, and they don't have, anything in place to either let the business continue or to have somebody take it over. And I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's your life's work. I mean, that is just devastating.
And at a personal level, what happens is if you have a family, your family's going through all of this, whether it's illness or death, they're going through all that. Plus. As a normal grieving process, plus the fact that the family source of income has dissipated or completely gone away. Yeah. And so now, we had a good income, we had a good life, and now all of a sudden we don't have anything. We don't have that person that mattered to us, and we don't have the income that they generated. Yeah. So it goes back, when do you start planning for this? Right away. Even if you don't want to sell for 5 or 10 years. The other thing is a practical consideration. As you start to think about selling your business, lots of times it takes a while. Right, I talk to business owners all the time, and they're like, what is your plan for getting out of this? And at some point I'll sell it. I'm like, well, do you have a person in mind? Right. And because you can either sell it externally, sell it internally, sell it to a family, or let it die. And a lot of businesses say, well, I'm going to sell, somebody will take it over. Well, somebody is nobody.
Right.
Right? And so if you're thinking you're going to sell the business internally, start thinking about who is going to be that person. Because I've also had a lot of business owners say, well, I'm going to sell it, and they've identified a successor inside of the business, and then that person ends up not being the person.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
So there's a lot tied up in this. But at least start getting the things that you can control into place.
Think about it. I mean, that's the thing. Just kind of
absolutely
think about it.
Absolutely.
Well, what kind of professionals should business owners be talking to or using as advisors as they're trying to come up with this plan, or as they're actually implementing or executing a plan to sell their business?
We've mentioned a couple. You could certainly use a business broker. Mm-hmm. Business broker commissions I've seen, you are going to pay a commission for it.
Sure.
The ones I've seen, 8 to 12%, typically around 10% is what I've seen. Okay. Business brokers work in different size businesses. You have some that don't do anything under $5 million.
Right.
You'll have others that are perfectly content working in $500 to $1 million range. So a business broker could give you an idea, even if you're not ready to sell.
Right.
Seen some good ones that'll come in and give you some ideas of what your business is worth. Your CPA can start talking to your CPA or your enrolled agent and start thinking about the tax consequences of selling your business.
Right.
Right. And so if I sell this business, what is it going to cost me? If I sell it for $1 million or $2 million or $10 million, what am I actually going to net? Am I going to net out of this?
Right.
So have that conversation. Your financial advisor, if they've been through transactions before, they might be a good source. And you can always look at a business appraiser. That might be the last on my list, simply because having the cost associated with that.
Right.
But once you really get serious about selling your business, you might want to go that way too. And go that way. And particularly if you're going to do a sale internally, or you're going to transition your business to your kids, your grandkids, then for tax purposes, you're going to want to have, your business broker is not going to be your person there. You're going to need an appraiser to help you figure out what your business is worth.
Well, particularly if it's going to one child and you've got other children, that's another one to stop the whole.
Yeah. Well, and you're
battles.
Right. Yeah, battles. And then, of course, if you're transferring it to family, the IRS is always going to want to know that was it a transfer? Was it a transfer at fair value?
Right.
Does it represent a partial gift? Because gifts are taxable.
Sure.
And so at that point, if you're going to transition the business in the family, you are going to want an independent appraiser.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, we've certainly gotten into some heavy kind of down stuff. Let's finish on something positive.
What would that be?
Small business and how important small business is, and it's the lifeblood.
Small business is the lifeblood of this country. I've seen statistics that over 80% of Americans are employed by small business, defined as businesses that are under 100 people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just like they're everywhere.
It is what it is.
They are everywhere. Owning a business is next to parenthood, is one of the most challenging, rewarding things that you can possibly do. It allows you to take control of aspects of your life. Right. It allows you to do things that you like to do, that you're good at.
Yep.
It makes a difference. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. But get resources, right? Get a good team. Get a good team around you. Good tax preparers, good financial advisors, good HR people.
You don't have to be expert. You don't have to be an expert at all this stuff, but you need to know who to call.
That's right.
To give you the expertise.
Yeah, that's right. And join the Better Business Bureau.
Absolutely.
Why would you not?
To take care of you, all kinds of great ways to help your business all the time.
That's right. Well, it's a community.
Yeah. Well, it's a community of trustworthy businesses, and your potential customers like to see that. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's a great thing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's always
Thanks as always for having me.
Always my pleasure. We'll find some more topics to talk about.
I got more.
A wealth of information. Just pull it on out of you. But That's all for this episode of Business and Beyond. Thank you for listening. And again, Wayne, always thank you for joining us. We have learned some great things on this episode. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to keep the conversation going, so please follow us and connect on social media and share your ideas for future topics and guests. And please visit us online at bbb.org. And until next time, keep building with integrity, leading with trust, and taking your business beyond expectations. The BBB way.